Picture a world where cities drift beneath sapphire tides, where people move through coral forests and inhale the sea itself, where evolution didn't climb onto land, it dove deeper. What would humans look like if we were born of water, not earth? What would our world become if we could breathe the ocean? This is not science fiction. This is evolution reimagined. Welcome to Lifenix, nature reimagined through AI. Today we ask, what if humans evolved to breathe underwater? Billions of years ago, life began in a single drop. The first cells floated in warm, mineral-rich oceans, sustained entirely by water. Over eons, evolution sculpted complexity, sponges, jellyfish, fish, and eventually, vertebrates that dared to crawl onto land. Those early amphibians faced unimaginable odds. Gravity crushed where buoyancy once lifted. Lungs replaced gills, skin thickened, senses transformed. And yet, from that audacious crawl came reptiles, mammals, primates, and finally, humans. But what if the story forked there? What if, rather than moving toward land, one branch of proto-humans moved backward, returning to the great blue cradle? Evolution doesn't move forward, it adapts. If staying underwater offered a better chance of survival, richer food, fewer predators, stable temperatures, natural selection might favor the ocean's call. Let's call this species Homo aquatilus, humanity reborn for a water world. For Homo aquatilus, the act of breathing would redefine existence. Our lungs, optimized for extracting oxygen from air, would be useless underwater. To thrive, this species would evolve branchial structures, gill-like organs capable of drawing dissolved oxygen from seawater. Fish achieve this through an elegant mechanism called countercurrent exchange, where blood and water flow in opposite directions across thin membranes, maximizing oxygen absorption. A similar principle could appear in humans, forming gill arches along the neck or chest, folds of skin rich with capillaries. To support this, blood chemistry would change dramatically. Hemoglobin concentration would increase, allowing more oxygen transport per cell. Myoglobin, the oxygen-binding protein found in deep-diving mammals, would saturate the muscles, giving their bodies a darker, almost purplish hue. Cells would evolve low-oxygen metabolic pathways, optimizing ADP production even when oxygen is scarce, like those found in seals and crocodiles. Every cell in Homo aquatilus would become a marvel of efficiency, evolving not through magic, but through necessity, the true engine of natural selection. Yet breathing water is energy-intensive. To balance this, they might evolve semi-aquatic dual respiration, retaining vestigial lungs for oxygen-rich shallows, while switching to gill-based respiration for extended dives. In this way, our aquatic descendants could inhabit both realms, amphibious heirs to an amphibian past. Evolution sculpts form according to function. Homo aquatilus would become a masterpiece of fluid design. Picture a streamlined figure, its limbs long and tapered like sea lion flippers. Fingers connected by thin webs, each movement smooth, elegant, effortless. The feet widen into natural fins. The spine flexes like a dolphin's backbone, undulating through the current. Skin thickens, pale and iridescent. Beneath it lies a layer of lipid-rich fat, insulating the body against cold depths and adding subtle buoyancy. Body hair vanishes, replaced by hydrodynamic perfection. Eyes adapt to the dim light below, wide pupils, double lenses capable of focusing both above and below the surface. A protective nictitating membrane slides across the eye like a transparent eyelid, shielding it from debris and salt. Ears, once tuned for air vibrations, evolved to sense pressure waves, faint ripples of movement. A lateral line of sensory pits runs from head to tail, perceiving the environment as patterns of flow. In this world, seeing is touching and hearing is feeling. And yet, these alterations would not erase humanity's spark. The same dexterous hands that once created tools and art would remain, only now adapted for carving coral, weaving seaweed fibers, crafting civilization beneath a different sky. In the deep blue twilight, cities shimmer like constellations. They are not built of metal or glass. Those materials corrode and crumble. Instead, Homo aquatilus builds with life itself. Coral architecture, grown, not forged. Enormous reef towers spiraling toward the sunlight, their walls alive, oxygenating the water as they sustain homes within. Domes of kelp membranes trap bubbles of air for hybrid dwellers. Schools of bioluminescent fish drift through streets, illuminating pathways like living lanterns. Without combustion or electricity, energy emerges from tidal motion, thermal vents, and photosynthetic symbionts engineered through coevolution. Imagine bacteria cultivated for glowing art and coral designed to emit gentle, rhythmic pulses of light that change with the tides. Their economy is not industrial, but ecological. Every structure exists within nature's metabolism. Nothing wasted, nothing burned. Even their tools live, mollusks that grow into protective shells shaped by guidance, algae used to filter toxins, jelly-like materials that harden underwater. For communication, sound waves replace spoken language. Patterns of frequency, low and melodic, transmit meaning across great distances. Perhaps their conversations ripple through the sea like whale song, voices harmonized with the heartbeat of the ocean. They would measure time not by sunrise, but by tidal cycles. Their calendars would follow the moon, guardian of their world's rhythms. Each full moon a season, each current a story. To survive in the abyss, Homo aquatilus would need to master pressure, the invisible weight that crushes all who descend too deep. For every 10 meters downward, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. At 300 meters, that's 30 times what your lungs experience on the surface. Their bodies would evolve unique biological solutions. Flexible rib cages collapsing safely under compression. Reinforced cell membranes preventing rupture at high pressures. Proteins stabilized by natural antifreeze molecules, ensuring function despite temperature and density shifts. Their organs would adapt to the dark. At depths beyond sunlight's reach, their retinas would fill with rod cells, capable of detecting even single photons. Skin might carry bioluminescent patterns, not decorative, but communicative, echoing the symphony of creatures around them. Even their sense of gravity would differ. Without a need for vertical reference, up and down would lose meaning. They might navigate fully in 3 dimensions, instinctively aware of current direction like migratory whales guided by the magnetic field of Earth. Over generations, such beings would no longer think of Earth and sea as separate domains. To them, one continuous fluid world exists, from coral shallows to midnight trenches. But for such evolution to unfold, immense environmental pressure would be required, both literal and metaphorical. Perhaps in this alternate timeline, catastrophic climate change floods continents. Sea levels rise, consuming cities, forests, plains. Stranded human populations seek refuge in shallows, learning to fish, dive, and harvest the ocean until adaptation begins to select for better underwater endurance. Genetic variation favors those with larger lung capacities, more myoglobin, gradual metabolic changes. Over tens of thousands of years, partial gill structures form. Then, niche isolation, different coastal populations develop unique traits until one group crosses the threshold, the true underwater breathers. From that point, terrestrial humanity begins to fade. The sea becomes the new frontier, and eventually, the only home. Evolution never plans ahead. It only preserves what works. And in a world consumed by water, survival would belong to the ones who listen to its depths. Civilization, even underwater, must answer the same ancient questions. Who are we? Where do we belong? How do we live together? Families of Homo equitalis might form pods, tight social groups bound by sound and motion rather than names. Parenthood would take on new meaning, newborns wrapped in kelp cradles, breathing through liquid-rich sacs until their gills fully mature. Rituals echo through bioluminescent chambers, slow, spiraling dances that mimic tidal flow. Their art is kinetic, painted not in pigment, but in rhythm and light. Poetry becomes current, music becomes pattern. Conflict, too, would adapt. Without property and borders defined by land, disputes might arise over territory within coral networks or migration channels. Yet war underwater is slow, cumbersome. Diplomacy becomes necessity. Balance, evolution's eternal law, governs even social life. Death, in such a civilization, would not mean burial. Instead, the dead are released to the current, becoming part of the great oceanic cycle. Their bodies nourish coral, plankton, and fish, a literal return to the system that sustained them. In the sea, nothing truly dies. It transforms. Could we ever become Homo equitalis not through millennia, but through design? Modern science already experiments with this question. In laboratories, synthetic biologists develop oxygen-carrying nanostructures, microscopic capsules that release oxygen underwater. Some prototypes enable mammals to survive minutes, even hours, submerged in oxygen-rich perfluorocarbon fluids. Medical researchers study these as emergency oxygenators for patients, but the implications stretch further. CRISPR technology could, in theory, introduce genes from aquatic organisms, like those managing osmoregulation, antifreeze proteins, or efficient oxygen transport, into the human genome. Similarly, scientists investigate artificial gills that extract oxygen from seawater using advanced membranes. While these innovations remain far from practicality, they hint at a boundary that may one day blur completely: the line between evolution and engineering. Would such augmentations make us less human or more adaptable? Evolution once took billions of years. Now it can happen in code. Imagine a future where ice caps melt entirely. Earth is no longer a planet of continents, but of archipelagos and reefs. The atmosphere, heavy with moisture, shrouds the world in mist. From orbit, it gleams pure blue, a true water world. In this world, Homo equitalis thrives. Coral forests stretch for thousands of miles, forming natural highways between habitats. Migration replaces urbanization. The ocean's depth becomes vertical civilization. The shallows for young, the twilight zones for builders, the abyss for dreamers and explorers. Their myths revolve around light. The surface becomes sacred, an unreachable heaven where ancient air-dwellers once flew. Some might swim to the surface at dawn just to watch the sun's molten shimmer before descending again, carrying stories like offerings. They are no longer conquerors of nature, but part of it, a species perfectly synchronized with planetary rhythms. Where humanity once scarred ecosystems, its descendants now repair them as they live within their flow. For them, the land remains a ghost. Ancient ruins hidden under silt, skyscrapers turned into reefs, highways transformed into coral corridors. Our cities become their archaeology. Statues of Liberty and stone domes become habitat for anemones and small fish. Through preserved objects, Homo equitalis would try to reconstruct who we were, the land breathers who once dominated and then disappeared. Perhaps they would wonder, why did we abandon the sea only to return? Why did we build walls against the world that birthed us? Their philosophers might teach that the mistake wasn't evolution itself, it was disconnection. We forgot that we were never separate from the water cycle that carries every breath, every drop, every heartbeat. To them, humanity's greatest sin would be forgetting where it came from. Its greatest redemption, returning to that origin transformed. This thought experiment isn't just fiction, it's a mirror. The possibility of Homo aquatilis reveals something about ourselves, how fragile our design is, yet how boundless our potential for adaptation remains. Life doesn't cling to one form. It flows, like water, reshaping, reforming, rediscovering balance after every disruption. The ocean covers 71% of our planet, yet we've mapped more of Mars than our own seabeds. There are volcanoes that erupt in silence beneath the waves, forests of glass sponges older than empires, and creatures glowing with colors unseen on land. Perhaps evolution's greatest mystery still waits below, the idea that the future of life might not be on Earth, but within it. And if humanity ever learns to breathe underwater, biologically or technologically, it would not just be a triumph of science. It would be a reconciliation, a homecoming. The ocean is not alien. It is the origin. Every breath you take carries molecules that were once part of ancient tides. The rhythm of your heartbeat mirrors the pulse of the waves. You are not apart from the ocean. You are its continuation. To breathe underwater may remain a hypothetical, but understanding why we dream of it isn't. It's because somewhere deep within our genes, in the oldest whispers of DNA, the sea still calls to us. If we listen, truly listen, perhaps we don't need gills to live like we belong there. Perhaps we only need humility, curiosity, and care. The question isn't whether humans could evolve to breathe underwater. The real question is whether we'll learn to breathe with the planet before we run out of air. This is Lifenix, nature reimagined through AI. Thank you for diving deep into the ocean that lives inside us all.